9 members of the court, no division at all, and retirees across every one of the 50 states are set to experience the effects of what just occurred inside the nation's highest judicial body. This is not a partisan issue. This is not about one side against another. This was a unanimous outcome, meaning justices from across the ideological spectrum reviewed the same facts, examined the same statutes, and reached full agreement. That kind of unity is extremely uncommon in a court that has often been split for many years. A 9-0 decision is not only unusual, it is historic. And the reason you may not have heard about it yet is exactly why you should stay with this video until the very end. What the Supreme Court has ruled directly touches the retirement stability of millions of Americans who spent decades contributing to a system they were told would support them later in life. We are discussing Social Security benefits. We are discussing the funds older Americans rely on each month for housing, food, medical prescriptions, and basic utilities. This ruling reshapes the legal structure around how those funds are safeguarded, how they might be reduced, delayed, or denied, and what rights individuals now have if there is interference. Prior to this decision, a quiet but increasing trend had been taking place within federal agencies that most retirees were unaware of. Administrative rulings about Social Security benefits were being made with very limited, meaningful opportunities for everyday Americans to contest them. The system was layered with bureaucracy. Appeals moved slowly. Outcomes often seemed predetermined. Retirees who were denied benefits unfairly or saw unexplained reductions in their monthly payments often found themselves stuck in a process that felt designed to wear them down until they gave up. And many did give up, because challenging a federal agency while living on a fixed income, where every dollar matters and legal expenses can quickly drain savings, is not a battle most people are equipped to fight. That was the reality before this ruling. And this is where the story of one individual changed everything for retirees nationwide. There was a man, a retiree who had worked for decades, consistently contributed to Social Security, and reached retirement expecting to receive what he had earned. Instead, the agency handling his benefits made administrative decisions that reduced what he should have received. He challenged those determinations. He followed the official appeals process step by step. He complied with every requirement, submitted every document, and met every deadline. Yet at each stage, the agency relied on its own interpretation of its own rules to rule against him. The system was essentially evaluating itself and consistently deciding it was correct. So he escalated the matter to federal court, and eventually it reached the Supreme Court of the United States. When the justices reviewed what had happened to him, when they analyzed how federal agencies had been exercising broad authority to interpret Social Security laws in ways that favored the agency rather than the retiree, they did not divide along expected lines. Instead, all 9 justices agreed completely. The essence of the Supreme Court's decision centers on a principle that may sound simple but carries major consequences. The principle is this: federal agencies do not have the final authority to define what the law means regarding benefits individuals are entitled to receive. For years, something known as the Chevron Doctrine allowed federal agencies wide latitude to interpret the laws they administered. In practice, this meant that when there was unclear language in a Social Security law, the agency running the program could decide how to interpret it. Courts were instructed to defer to that interpretation as long as it appeared reasonable, not necessarily correct or fair, just reasonable. Consider what that meant. Imagine having a legal agreement where someone owes you money every month for life. Then imagine that any disagreement about the agreement is decided by that same person. They interpret every unclear clause and settle every dispute, and courts are told to accept their decision unless it is entirely unreasonable. That was the reality retirees faced before this ruling. That was the system in place while millions tried to secure benefits they had earned. The Supreme Court reviewed this structure and determined it could not continue. Courts are responsible for interpreting the law. That responsibility has always belonged to them. When a federal agency makes a decision that reduces, delays, or denies benefits, and that decision is challenged, judges must now conduct an independent legal analysis. They cannot simply accept the agency's interpretation. They must review the law themselves and determine its meaning while protecting the rights of the individual bringing the case. This is the change. This is what a unanimous decision looks like when applied to real-life retirement security. If you are currently receiving Social Security, approaching retirement, or have a loved one who depends on these payments, this is not a distant legal issue. It directly affects the structure of financial stability, strengthening it in ways not seen in decades. One important detail often overlooked is that the impact of this ruling can vary by state. Because Social Security involves federal rules alongside some state-level processes, the real-world effects depend partly on location. Some states have been more aggressive in using administrative interpretations to limit benefits. Others have large backlogs of denied claims within the appeals system. Many of those cases were decided under the old framework where agencies held interpretive authority. Now those cases are being viewed under a different legal standard. In certain states, many retirees may now have valid grounds to revisit past decisions and seek proper judicial review. This does not mean every denied claim will be reversed or that every retiree will automatically recover losses. What it does mean is that a legal pathway, previously restricted, is now open. A pathway between individuals and the retirement security they work to build. And the Supreme Court has made it clear that this opening cannot simply be ignored. Stay with this video because the next part explains how this ruling may apply to your situation. We will go through the states most affected, examine the types of benefits most impacted, and outline the options now available for those who face denied, reduced, or delayed benefits. The information ahead could be one of the most important financial insights you encounter this year. Do not leave. Let's continue from where we paused, because the following details transform this ruling from a headline into practical knowledge. We established that the Supreme Court removed the framework that allowed agencies broad interpretive authority over retirement benefit laws. Now we look at how this plays out in real situations across various states. Begin with states that have high volumes of Social Security disputes currently in appeals. States such as Florida, Texas, California, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, and Illinois have large retiree populations. In these states, thousands of claims have been denied, reduced, or delayed in recent years. Many decisions were made by administrative judges within the Social Security system. Under the prior framework, federal courts often deferred to agency interpretations. That is no longer the case. Now, every pending and future challenge will be reviewed independently by judges who must determine whether the agency applied the law correctly. This represents a major shift in balance between government authority and individual rights. It is particularly significant in situations where retirees are most vulnerable. Consider someone applying for benefits after decades of contributions and being told their payment is lower due to a technical calculation. Previously, such determinations were difficult to challenge. Now, courts can independently review those calculations and, if incorrect, rule in favor of the retiree. Let's examine key benefit categories affected by this change. First is Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. Denial rates for initial applications have historically been high, often based on how agencies interpret medical eligibility criteria. Courts previously gave significant weight to those interpretations. That is no longer required. Individuals denied SSDI now have stronger legal standing to challenge decisions if they believe the law was misapplied. Second are survivor benefits. When a spouse passes away, the surviving partner may qualify for benefits based on the deceased's earnings. These rules can involve complex interpretations, especially in less typical situations. Now, courts can independently evaluate those interpretations rather than automatically accepting the agency's view. Third are retirement benefit calculations and timing rules. Complex provisions govern early claims, pension interactions, and work history considerations. Some interpretations have significantly affected retirees' income. With the prior framework removed, these interpretations can now be challenged more effectively. A key aspect often overlooked is that this ruling also affects future decisions. It changes the environment in which all benefit determinations will occur. Agency officials are now aware that their interpretations may face independent judicial review. This awareness can lead to more careful and balanced decision-making. The impact is not only legal, but also institutional, influencing how agencies operate daily. For someone planning retirement in the coming years, this means decisions about eligibility and benefits will be made within a system where oversight is meaningful. Agencies can no longer rely on courts to automatically support their interpretations. Each decision now carries the possibility of thorough judicial review. It is also important to address a common misunderstanding. Some may assume this ruling leads to benefit reductions or funding cuts. That is not the case. The decision does not reduce benefits or authorize cuts. Instead, it strengthens individuals' ability to challenge decisions they believe are incorrect. It shifts interpretive authority toward independent courts. For retirees, this is a safeguard. Another important question is whether past cases can be reopened. The answer depends on timing and legal procedures. There are deadlines for challenging decisions, and those do not change. However, for ongoing or new cases, the legal standard has shifted. For older cases, options may still exist through specific legal mechanisms being explored by attorneys. Finally, consider the significance of a unanimous decision. Every justice agreed that agencies should not have unchecked authority over laws affecting retirement security. That consensus sends a clear message. Courts will independently interpret the law, and agencies must operate within those boundaries. If you have contributed to Social Security, are planning retirement, or support someone who depends on these benefits, this ruling represents a major development in retirement security. Share this information with others who may benefit from it. Stay informed, because further updates explaining state-specific impacts are on the way. 9 justices, full agreement, nationwide impact, and a retirement system now supported by stronger legal protections than it has had in decades. That is the full picture. And now you are informed,